Hey guys, tonight we slip into some worn-out sandals, tighten the straps on a dented bronze cuirass, and step into the dusty footprints of a Macedonian soldier, trudging across the burning plains of India in 326 BC. Your hair is slick with sweat, your breath tastes like old onions, and you haven't sat down in what feels like years. The sun doesn't just beat down, it interrogates you. The dust gets into everything. Your eyes, your food, your imagination. You're thousands of miles from home, and your stomach growls like a wild beast. Welcome to Alexander the Great's campaign trail. You probably won't survive this. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, let me know where you're tuning in from and what time it is. Bonus points if you're eating a midnight snack while we talk about ancient rations. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. And let's ease into tonight's journey together. You are marching in formation again. The line stretches for miles, dotted with grimy, half-starved men just like you. Their shields clank against their backs with every step. Occasionally, someone lets out a half-hearted curse at a rock in their sandal. You're used to it now. The ache in your calves, the dull throb in your shoulders, it's background music at this point. What isn't so easy to ignore is the emptiness gnawing at your belly. It's been 2 days since you last had anything that could be generously described as a meal. That was some crumbly barley bread and a strip of dried goat meat. Since then, a few bitter olives, maybe a half handful of chickpeas if you were lucky. You'd eat your own sandal if it didn't smell so much like wet dog and despair. The sun hangs overhead like an angry god. It's late spring in India, and your Macedonian skin isn't built for this. You squint ahead. Somewhere up there, Alexander himself is probably riding comfortably, sipping something cool and sweet, maybe chewing on a fig he didn't have to barter for. But you? You're fantasizing about licking dew off your shield just to stay hydrated. You weren't always this feral. Back in Pella, you remember hot meals and sweet wine, laughter around wooden tables. Here, the laughter is dry and cracked, and most of the wine tastes like regret soaked in vinegar. Your marching buddy, Nicandros, once tried to convince you that roasted grasshoppers tasted like crunchy lamb. He's a liar and possibly a sociopath, but he's also the one who taught you how to scrape mold off your rations using the edge of a bronze coin. Every few miles, the order to rest comes. You collapse where you stand. No tent, no cushion, just your cloak, which smells increasingly like boiled cabbage. You lay back and close your eyes, but your stomach doesn't let you sleep. It whines. And so do you, under your breath. You dig around in your satchel. Inside, it's a sad, familiar inventory. A small cloth pouch of salt, a piece of dried onion, a square of rock-hard bread, and a flask of thin wine. You lick your finger and dab it in the salt, pretending it's seasoning and not just a desperate gesture at flavor. This, supposedly, is what fuels an empire. Historians still argue whether Alexander's army had a consistent ration supply, or whether it was all improvisation and pilfering. Evidence suggests a bit of both. Your reality, however, is simple. You eat what you can find when you can find it, and hope your stomach forgives you later. The funny thing is, some days you hallucinate real meals. You swear you can smell roasted lamb or honey-drenched pastries. It's always a cruel trick of the wind or a vivid memory conjured by a desperate brain. Once, Nicandros claimed he smelled cinnamon. Everyone mocked him until the wind shifted and suddenly, there it was, a trace of spice, probably from a nearby village. You all stood there like idiots, sniffing the breeze with your eyes closed like it was perfume. Tonight, you'll lie under a sky that doesn't quite feel like your own. The stars are the same but not really. They seem sharper here, hung in a sky that's too wide and too deep. You chew your bread slowly, deliberately. Each bite is an act of survival, not sustenance. It tastes like chalk and regret. You chase it with a swig of wine so sour it makes your eyes water, but at least it washes the dust from your throat. It's strange, isn't it? You've marched for months across deserts and rivers, fought under banners, watched cities burn, and yet the thing you miss most right now is a hot bowl of barley stew. The kind your mother used to make. Thick, hearty, with a little olive oil on top and a piece of warm bread on the side. She'd scold you for slouching, for eating too fast. You'd kill for that scolding now. You'd kill for that stew. A few feet away, someone hums a lullaby in a language you don't understand. Another snores gently. The night is thick with the scent of sweat, ash, and overripe figs someone stole earlier. You curl up, your stomach still gnawing at itself, and close your eyes. Sleep doesn't come quickly, but it does come. It always does. Eventually, the body gives up its protest and collapses into dreams where food is endless, and the sun is a little kinder. You wake up to the sound of sandals crunching gravel and the low groan of men rising with aching backs and empty stomachs. The fireless camp stirs and you blink against the new sun, still licking the salt from your lips like it's a delicacy. A trumpet blares somewhere up the line. Time to march again. But before that, you dig into your ration sack to find what culinary disappointment awaits you this morning. A small cloth-wrapped bundle emerges, stiff and a little damp with sweat. Inside, 2 coarse loaves of paxamadia, barley bread baked hard as pottery. You bang one against your knee. It doesn't break. You suck on a corner, letting your saliva soften it, and pretend it's a biscuit. The barley's rough, fibrous, mixed with whatever fillers the quartermaster scraped together last week. Bits of millet, cracked peas, and possibly pebbles for texture. Alongside the bread is a sad wedge of cheese. Hard, crumbly, and sour goat's milk cheese that smells faintly of someone's armpit. You tear off a piece and chew slowly. It's not bad. Not good either. Just sustenance. Next is a small bundle of dried fish. Tiny salty things like anchovies that died disappointed. You pop one in your mouth and chew. The salt stings your cracked lips, but it's protein. You try not to think about how many days it's been in your pack. Or weeks. This is the typical ration kit for a Macedonian soldier on campaign: light, dense, portable. Designed for longevity, not flavor. You carry enough for maybe 3 days if you're careful. After that, hope for resupply or a successful liberation of a local granary. Spoiler: you rarely get 3 days. The trick you've learned is portioning. If you eat it all in one go, you're starving by sundown. If you spread it too thin, you're lightheaded during battle. And that's how you get your head removed by someone with a better breakfast. Nicandros once tried eating his entire ration at dawn to get it over with. By nightfall, he was gnawing tree bark and asking philosophical questions about whether moss counted as food. It didn't end well. He hallucinated a roast pig and tried to bite a helmet. Historians still argue whether soldiers received fresh rations daily, or if they foraged between shipments. Archaeological digs suggest both. Mules and supply wagons would trail the army, loaded with sacks of grain, amphorae of wine, cured meats, and sometimes even onions and garlic. Not glamorous but essential. A fringe theory even suggests that some soldiers carried personal kitchen stones, flat bits of rock used to grind grain on the fly. You don't have one, but that guy in the Thracian helmet swears by his. Every rest he's crouched in the dust, mumbling and grinding lentils like a monk praying for soup. You keep walking, chewing as you go. The dried fish is gone. You tuck the remaining bread into your tunic, already looking forward to ignoring it again in 2 hours. By midday, the sun is a tyrant. Your stomach churns more from heat than hunger. The guy next to you pukes noiselessly onto his own boots. No one even looks. That's just normal. Another soldier, possibly named the Rose, but you've never been good with names, collapses. 2 others drag him to the side. No ceremony, just survival. You pass a small stream and dunk your head, then refill your wineskin. The water smells faintly of frogs, but you drink anyway. To pretend it's wine, you drop in a crushed herb leaf from your pouch, something minty, maybe even medicinal or maybe poison. You're not sure anymore. Lunch, if you can call it that, is half the remaining bread and a few shriveled olives. The olives were part of last week's loot from a village that didn't fight back hard enough. You try not to think about what happened to them. It's easier that way. You chew slowly, letting your imagination do most of the flavor work. You pretend the olives are fresh. You pretend the bread is soft. You pretend your feet don't hurt like you dance barefoot on a spiked mosaic. The truth is, you've eaten worse. Remember the time you found half a fig in the folds of your cloak? That was a holiday. Or when you split a single egg between 4 people. You all stared at it like it was treasure. Someone wept openly when it rolled off the rock and cracked. But there's also pride in this suffering. You're one of Alexander's soldiers. The phalanx. The hammer of the world. You're half-starved, sunburned, and covered in unidentifiable goo. But you're also the edge of an empire's sword. Later in the evening, someone trades a scrap of jerky for a story. That's how meals work now. Not just about food. their currency bonding morale. You chew quietly as someone recites a dirty limerick about a Scythian and a donkey. It's terrible. Everyone laughs anyway. As the sun sets, your stomach still growls. But you have your last piece of bread, a few fennel seeds, and the memory of cheese. You lie down, bones grinding against the earth, and pull your cloak tight. Tomorrow? Same bread, same march, same sky. But for now you close your eyes, taste salt on your lips, and drift off to dreams of roasted meats you'll never eat. Morning again. Your breath fogs just a little as the air clings cool and damp before the sun gets angry. You sit up with a creak of joints and bones that feel much older than you are. And your first thought isn't of glory or conquest, it's food. Not because you're greedy, but because the hollow ache in your belly is the loudest part of you now. You reach for your ration pouch again. Now more optimistic than realistic. There's still a sliver of Paxamadia left, curled into itself like it's ashamed of being so small. You tap it on your knee, it breaks this time. Progress. But today there's no fire. No smoke curling into the air. No glowing coals. You're on the move again, and cooking requires time, firewood, and relative peace, none of which you have in surplus. Which brings you to the fine art of uncooked food improvisation, Ancient Soldier Edition. You reach into your cloak's inner fold and pull out a small palmful of lentils. They're dry, chalky, and harder than the philosophical riddles your old tutor used to mumble. You tip them into a little cloth, add a dash of water from your wineskin, and tie it into a knot. Then you mash them between two smooth river stones until they become a sort of gritty paste. Tada! Breakfast. It's like hummus but tragic. There's no salt, no oil, no garlic. Just raw legume grit with the faintest memory of flavor. You smear it on what's left of your bread and pretend you're dining in a rustic countryside tavern. You're not. You're squatting in the dirt with 20,000 other unshowered men, and one mule that won't stop staring at you. Historians still argue whether soldiers ever boiled pulses in makeshift pots or ate them exclusively raw or mashed. The archaeological record is frustratingly silent on whether a bronze helmet could double as a cooking pot. Nicandros swears he once used his helmet to stew lentils. Then again, he also swears he once beat a Persian archer with a turnip. Take it as you will. Fringe theories suggest soldiers might also have used flat stones heated in the sun to gently warm their food. Primitive frying pans. You once tried that with a chunk of cheese. It turned into a gooey disaster that attracted every fly in the known world. But you learned. Mostly to not cook cheese. You chew. It's not good, but your body doesn't care anymore. It just wants energy, protein, carbs, a reason to keep trudging. You give it what it needs. Just barely. Around you others do the same. One guy has a small onion. Another gnaws on a handful of nuts, probably scavenged or traded from locals. There's a camaraderie in this culinary misery. You swap bites, trade seasoning advice. Try spitting on it before chewing. It softens the edges. And share gossip about the last time someone found honey. Somewhere up the line, someone with actual rank has a cook. He's probably squatting beside a small fire, heating real food in real cookware. You get a whiff of something oily and rich, goat maybe. Or eel. Your stomach responds with a sound that can only be described as existential panic. So you distract yourself. You start prepping the next meal. Even if it's 5 hours away. That means more grain grinding. You've got some millet kernels, tiny and round like birdseed, tucked into a pouch. You spill them onto a flat stone and roll another over them, rhythmically. Soothing in a way. Meditative. You start humming. Not a tune, just noise. Just enough to make you forget your ribs are showing. Lunch is millet mash. A sad, dry crumble that clumps in your mouth like sawdust. You chew for what feels like days. You try adding a bit of wild herb you found along the riverbank. Tastes like pine needles and regret, but it gives the illusion of variety. You'll take it. Once long ago you had a proper meal back in Babylon maybe. Cooked by a real chef. Meat on skewers dipped in sweet sour sauces, fruit on clay platters. You remember that dinner like it was a dream. The flavors are ghosts now. Dancing just out of reach on your tongue. A joke floats through camp. What's the fastest way to make soup in the field? Stick your tongue out when it rains. It's not funny, but you laugh anyway. Hunger makes everything either hilarious or tragic. By evening the heat has faded, and you're finally stopped for more than 10 minutes. You gather with a few others and someone produces a tiny iron bowl. It's blackened with age and soot. You all donate a scrap of something: lentils, cheese, a bit of fish, even an onion peel. Someone lights a tiny flame with twigs and dung, and the mixture cooks slowly. This is luxury. You pass around the bowl like a sacred relic. Everyone gets a bite, just one, but it's warm and shared. The taste? Divine. Not because of the ingredients, but because for once you didn't eat alone. You fall asleep with a fullish stomach and the vague warmth of companionship. In a world of cold, dry rations, that bowl of mystery stew might as well have been a banquet. The next morning arrives not with the sun, but with the clatter of orders barked and shields clanging into readiness. You groan, roll over, and try to make yourself one with the earth. It doesn't work. Someone steps over you. Possibly on you. You sit up with a sigh and reach once more for your dwindling supplies. Paxamadia again. The same indestructible barley bread. Now as familiar as your own heartbeat. This time you try a trick learned from an older veteran. You soak the bread in wine from your skin. The wine is watered down and sour, more like vinegar pretending to have dreams, but it softens the bread into something almost edible. Not quite enjoyable, but your jaw appreciates the break from stone grinding every bite. As you chew the soggy mess, you glance around. Everyone's eating like prisoners. No talking. Just the sound of chewing, coughing, and the occasional existential sigh. One guy is licking the inside of a dried fig skin like it holds ancient secrets. Doesn't, but that won't stop him. Breakfast complete, you rise to the familiar weight of your gear. Shield, spear, helmet, sandals half falling apart. You adjust your tunic, check for any remaining food scraps, and start the day's march. Today promises no battle, just movement. Miles and miles of sun, dust, and the rhythmic thump of leather on dirt. You think about dinner. Because thinking about dinner keeps your brain busy. If you make it to a village today, maybe there's a cook fire. Maybe someone's roasting wild fowl. Maybe, just maybe, there's honey. Or oil. Or figs. You're dreaming again, and it's dangerous. Dreams like that can make reality sharper, crueler. So, you stop and focus on the facts. What will you eat tonight? If nothing changes, it'll be the rest of your dry cheese. Now harder than ever and coated in a thin layer of questionable fuzz. Maybe you'll scrape it off with your dagger. Maybe you'll pretend it's seasoning. Historians still argue whether soldiers in Alexander's army were regularly supplied with oil, or only received it sporadically through loot and raids. Amphorae of olive oil have been found in some campsites, but they may have belonged only to officers or medics. You haven't seen a drop in weeks, unless you count that time someone spilled his lamp and tried to fry a grasshopper on the wick. It didn't work. Fringe speculation from one Hellenistic scholar even proposes that soldiers sometimes kept pressed olive cakes, residue left from oil extraction, to chew like a makeshift energy bar. You've never seen one, but if you did, you'd probably trade a toe for it. By midday you stop. It's blistering hot, and the commander relents briefly. You sit in the shade of your shield and pull out the next sad meal. A handful of dried chickpeas. You toss them like dice into your mouth and suck on them for a while, trying to rehydrate them with pure stubbornness. They don't soften. Ever. But they fill space. A comrade leans over and shows you his prize, dried figs. Real ones. Shriveled but sweet, with tiny seeds that crunch in your teeth. He gives you one. You swear your soul leaves your body in gratitude. The sugar jabs your system like a festival trumpet, and you almost cry. Not because it's emotional, because your body forgot what sugar was. Once back in Susa, you tasted date syrup on flatbread. It was like eating the sun itself. Now you'd settle for the smell of it. You press on, chewing your dusty chickpeas, imagining them as sweet, soft dates. The fantasy helps at least for a few steps. As dusk paints everything bronze and shadows grow long, you arrive at a village, or what's left of one. Burnt huts, smoldering embers, and a few terrified goats. You're told to forage, which is just a polite term for loot what hasn't fled. You split from your unit and slip behind a half-fallen wall. Inside the rubble, jackpot. A bundle of green onions, a few bulbs of garlic, and best of all, a cracked jar half full of honey. Actual honey. You whisper thanks to every god you can name. The onions you eat raw, crunching through the white bulbs with abandon. The garlic you nibble sparingly. No need to breathe fire on your fellow soldiers. The honey you hoard. You lick one finger, then another, feeling it drip down your throat like liquid gold. You gather the loot and meet back with your group. Others have done well too. Lentils, 2 eggs, 1 broken, 1 still intact. And miracle of miracles, a bit of salt. Tonight you're kings. You pull everything into an old bronze bowl someone borrowed from a temple long ago. Over a small fire you mash the garlic, crumble in the onions, crack the egg, toss in the lentils, and drizzle the tiniest bit of honey. A soldier with some cooking sense stirs it like it's the Iliad's last chapter. The smell alone makes you dizzy. The resulting dish isn't much to look at. Brown mush with occasional lumps. But when you eat it hot, salty, sweet, tangy, it's heaven. You close your eyes and let the warmth coat your soul. You laugh. You all do. Not because the food's amazing, but because for the first time in weeks you feel human. The sun sinks, your stomach's not growling, and you're not marching. For now that's enough. Later you lie on your side, the fire a faint red behind your eyelids, the taste of honey still lingering like a good memory. Sleep comes easier tonight. It's sometime before dawn when you wake again. This time not to shouts or marching orders, but to your stomach politely reminding you that last night's miracle stew is ancient history. You roll over, shielding your eyes from the creeping gray light. Your breath makes a small puff of mist. Cold again. Of course. You dig into your pouch with optimism that borders on delusion. Inside, a handful of millet grains clink softly. A reminder that your life now consists of trying to convince your body that bird food is a luxury. You consider your options. Chew it raw, grind it down, or soak it into a paste that vaguely resembles porridge. You choose the last option because hey, variety. There's no fire yet. Smoke would give away your position. So you soak the grains in a small clay cup, swirling them around with a bit of water. You keep stirring and hope friction counts as cooking. Spoiler, it doesn't. But eventually the mix becomes a thick slurry. You lift it to your mouth and sip. It's like licking a damp rock that went to culinary school but dropped out early. As you eat, you spot something moving, Nicandros again, carrying a flat stone he's clearly stolen from some poor soul's roof tile. He's grinning like he's invented fire. Sunbake, he whispers dramatically, setting the stone in a sunlit patch. He dumps a mush of ground peas and herbs onto it and sits back like a chef watching soufflé rise. Historians still argue whether ancient soldiers in the field used the sun itself to heat meals. While it seems laughable, desert heat and ingenuity make a compelling combo. Some even believe soldiers left grain paste on sun-warmed shields to soften while marching, though that might be more legend than fact. You give Nicandros a skeptical glance, but in this world hope is edible. You pat your stomach and sit back, watching the world slowly lighten around you. The sky turns from slate to gold, and the air shifts from cold to manageable. Somewhere a bird dares to chirp. Your unit moves out again. Today's a long one. You've been told there's a river ahead. Maybe fresh fish, maybe cool water, maybe locals to trade with, if they don't hide or run. You pass the miles by chewing on dried herbs you tucked away days ago. They taste like hay and bitterness, but they trick your stomach into believing you're doing something useful. By midday you reach the river. It's shallow, clear, and blessedly cold. You kneel and splash water over your head, then drink deeply. After watching to make sure no one else drops dead. Safety first, flavor second. Someone's already caught a fish. It's tiny and twitching but edible. You're not picky. You try your luck with a net made of twine and wishful thinking. Surprisingly, you catch something, more eel than fish, slippery and wriggling. You hold it up like a trophy and promptly drop it. After a small wrestling match, you win. You consider cooking it, but there's no fire yet. So you clean it with your dagger and wrap it in herbs. Dinner plan, underway. As the sun starts its lazy descent, fires bloom like flowers around camp. Tiny, smoky, often fueled by things that should probably never be burned. You toss your eel onto a hot flat stone and watch it sizzle. It doesn't take long. The skin blisters, the meat tightens, and your mouth waters so hard you almost lose motor function. You flip it with a twig, careful not to lose any precious flesh. The smell is amazing. Not just because it's eel but because it's cooked. You haven't tasted heat and fat together in days. You drag the finished fish onto a piece of bread and take a bite. Crisp, oily, slightly fishy perfection. You lean back and chew with reverence. Nearby, someone's cooking chickpeas again. They've soaked them since morning and are now slowly boiling them in a cup balanced on hot stones. The whole camp smells like rustic stew and burnt hair. You pretend it's a high-end festival and your tent is the best table in town. A curious bit. Some scholars suggest Macedonian soldiers might have carried small personal spice kits, tiny pouches of dried mint, cumin, or wild oregano. No one knows for sure, but it's plausible. You've got none of that, of course. But Nicandros pulls out a pinch of crushed coriander. He traded with a merchant back in Sogdiana. He offers a dusting, and you bless him like a priest. It transforms the eel. Just like that, you remember your uncle's garden, your mother's cooking, and that one time you weren't starving. The bite turns into memory. And memory in moments like this is nourishment too. You finish your dinner slowly, even licking your fingers. A habit you abandoned weeks ago out of sheer dust overload. But this deserves savoring. The fire dies to a soft red glow, and the chill returns. You wrap your cloak tighter and lie back on a patch of earth that could politely be described as rock-adjacent. You look up at the stars, familiar, ancient, uncaring, but beautiful. Nicandros is snoring already, which ruins the moment. But you forgive him. Today you ate like a human. Maybe even like a soldier who mattered. And tomorrow? Well, tomorrow maybe there'll be another river. Another eel. Or maybe just a handful of millet. Either way, you'll manage. The camp stirs before sunrise again because apparently the sun takes too long. You wake to the unmistakable aroma of someone attempting to roast lentils over embers. It smells like smoke, despair, and a hint of hope. You pull yourself up from the dirt, pat your aching back, and glance into your rations pouch like it might have magically restocked itself overnight. It hasn't. You find the last few raisins hiding in the corner. Wrinkled, sticky, but sweet. You pop them into your mouth and chew slowly, pretending you're dining in a palace. It lasts 4 seconds. Then it's back to chewing air and questioning your life choices. Today's march is more of a drag. The terrain shifts, rockier, harder, less forgiving. The soles of your sandals whisper threats with every step. You think about food just to pass the time. The bread, the figs that one time someone smuggled in a small wedge of goat cheese wrapped in cloth like it was state treasure. You remember how officers often got better supplies. Not fancy but less fatal. More regular. Olive oil, garum, a kind of fish sauce with enough smell to clear a tent, wine of acceptable quality, sometimes salted pork. You've seen it but rarely tasted it. One time you were invited to help carry provisions to a commander. One of the amphorae had cracked, leaking garum into the sand. You swear the smell followed you for days, and made you hungry anyway. Historians still argue whether these luxuries ever trickled down to regular foot soldiers. Some say it depended on proximity to command, others on battlefield luck, others still on how convincingly you could fake a limp to hang around the medic's tent and steal their better meals. Meanwhile, your own supplies are dangerously low. You hear a rumor that a new foraging party came back with a few roots and something that looks like a small tuber. One man claims it's wild yam. Another says it's poison. Classic team-building exercise. As you march, you think about meals that never were. Rich stews with thick cuts of meat. Bread still soft at the center, olives floating in brine. The kind of stuff they probably eat in those marble cities back west. You try to remember the last time your bread wasn't harder than your shield. You fail. You finally stop near a rocky outcrop that might once have been a shrine. There's a small stream nearby, cold and clear. You crouch, scoop water into your hands and drink slowly. That one moment of cold freshness almost makes up for everything else. Almost. Someone's building a fire again. It takes effort. No real wood, just scrub brush and old, smoky charcoal from last night. You toss in your share of foraged roots, praying they're edible. One man slices his open and sniffs it like a suspicious goat. He shrugs and tosses it in. Peer-reviewed science at its finest. You find an old iron pan left behind by someone smarter than you. Into it goes water, a bit of ground barley, and the mysterious root. It bubbles slowly. The smell is earthy. Promising. Slightly alarming. But promising. Nearby, a young recruit pulls something from his cloak, dried apple slices. You stare like he sprouted wings. From home, he says softly. He offers you one. You take it and chew slowly. The sweetness unfolds like a dream from years ago. There's a fringe theory that Alexander allowed soldiers to keep small comfort foods if they could carry them. Dried fruits, bits of cured meat, even family recipe spices hidden in wax-sealed tubes. There's no consensus, of course. Some say only officers had that privilege. Others argue that morale-boosting snacks were secretly encouraged. Back in the pan, the root and barley stew thickens into something resembling glue with texture. You taste a spoonful and wince. It's bland. You add a pinch of salt from your emergency stash and suddenly it's still bland, but less offensive. Dinner that night is quiet. Everyone's chewing slowly, staring into the fire like it might reveal secrets. The food isn't good, but it's warm. And when you've walked 15 miles with a spear digging into your shoulder, warm counts as gourmet. You lie back, stomach fullish, and listen to the night sounds. Someone coughs. Someone else is whispering a prayer to Hermes. One guy is practicing bird calls for no reason you can understand. Maybe it helps. You think about home again. About what your mother might be cooking if she knew where you were. Roasted lamb, soft lentils soaked in oil, flatbread puffed and steaming. You'd tear it with your fingers, dip it in thick yogurt. Maybe chase it with a sip of clean, cool wine. The fantasy is so vivid you can almost smell it. And just like that, sleep becomes easier. Not because you're comfortable, but because dreams beat reality every time. You wake to a sunrise that's all flame and drama, spilling gold across the hills like some divine bribe. Your joints crack as you stand. Your stomach grumbles immediately. It's become very punctual, like an overenthusiastic assistant manager. Breakfast, if you can call it that, is a half loaf of barley bread and a smear of fig paste you've been saving like treasure. The paste is so old it could probably vote, but it still tastes of sugar and memory. You chew slowly, trying to make each bite last longer than your attention span. The bread is, of course, hard enough to qualify as building material. Macedonian rations weren't exactly Michelin-starred. Bread, often baked days in advance, tended to become a kind of edible brick. Still it's filling. Nicandros, already up and chewing his own concrete biscuit, mutters something about dreams of honey. You both laugh. Even though you're not sure if that's funny or just the last flicker of sanity waving goodbye. Soon after, it's another march. The terrain's shifting again, now dry and scrubby, with sharp grass that wants to slice your shins and hills that always seem to be uphill in both directions. The food in your pouch has officially reached decorative status. One dried olive, a pinch of cracked wheat, and a pebble that might have snuck in to keep things company. As you walk, you overhear one of the older veterans grumbling about Alexander's obsession with speed. "We're not chasing a battle," he mutters. "We're chasing an appetite." You nod silently. Marching light means eating light. And eating light, more often than not, means daydreaming about things that used to be normal: meat, salt, real cheese. Historians still debate how Macedonian supply lines function deep into campaigns like this. There are papyrus fragments suggesting scheduled delivery of rations, but the real logistics? Patchy at best. Some claim locals were coerced into providing supplies. Others believe the soldiers survived more on foraging and desperation than any royal supply chain. And desperate foragers got creative. You spot a group not far off the trail poking through brambles for berries. One of them claims it's edible. Another swears it's a laxative. You choose not to test either theory. Instead, you focus on what might come next. A resupply point, a generous village, even a stolen chicken if the gods are feeling playful. You reach a small settlement by midday. The kind that probably isn't on any map, unless the map is emotional. A few mud brick homes, some scraggly goats, and a cluster of wide-eyed children watching you like you're some tragic parade. A local trader steps forward cautiously, holding out a basket with dates and small flatbreads. The officer in charge makes some awkward hand gestures, and eventually, a few drachmas change hands. You snag one date before the rest vanish into the officer's packs. The date is a revelation. Sweet, chewy, and sun-warmed, it tastes like civilization. Like poetry. Like something your body remembers better than your mind. You lick your fingers like a criminal, hiding the taste on your tongue. Interestingly, there's speculation that Alexander's men traded not just coin, but also iron tools, fabric scraps, and even songs for food. Yes, songs. One surviving story from a later scribe tells of a group of soldiers singing for their supper, charming a local village into handing over figs and wine. There's no way to know if it's true, but you hum a tune under your breath anyway, just in case. The commander allows a short rest. You sit under a crooked tree, nibbling on the last of your barley bread, now paired with the tiniest square of goat cheese gifted by a generous elder. It's sharp, creamy, and smells slightly like unwashed socks, but in a good way. Or maybe that's the hunger talking. You close your eyes, chew slowly, and drift into a half-lucid daze. Around you the camp is quiet. Some are sleeping. Others are cleaning their gear. A few are making tea from dried herbs, wild thyme and mint mostly. The scent drifts lazily through the air. It's comforting, like a memory from someone else's nicer life. You remember how some soldiers used to flavor their water with sour pomegranate seeds or vinegar, both to kill off bad tastes and bad bacteria. A kind of ancient sports drink minus the branding. You pour a drop of vinegar from your travel flask into your water and take a sip. Still awful, but now intentionally awful. Nicandro sits down beside you, offering a tiny pinch of crushed garlic. For strength, he says. You sprinkle it over your last bite of bread, and it kicks like a mule. Your eyes water. Your stomach applauds. By evening, the camp begins to move again. There's a valley ahead, rumored to be fertile, which in military terms usually translates to prepare to beg farmers for tubers. But hope is a dish best served repeatedly. You trudge onward, mouth tingling from garlic, belly echoing softly, head full of fantasy menus. Roasted lamb and honey glaze, lentils with cumin, pickled onions, spice figs, pita fresh from the coals. You can almost taste it. The sun dips behind the ragged hills of the Punjab frontier, and the heat finally breaks, just a little. The air shifts from scorched and dry to something a bit more forgiving. You're crouched over a patch of trampled grass near the edge of the Macedonian encampment, blowing softly on a meager fire, the smoke stinging your eyes and carrying a distinct note of desperation. You're not a cook, but tonight you're pretending to be one, because hunger doesn't care about culinary talent. Your dinner tonight? Well, let's call it a culinary experiment. It started with something vaguely root, like you bartered off a local in exchange for a bronze brooch, followed by some salted dried meat you're 70% sure was from a goat and not something less ideal. You've skewered the meat on a stick you whittled with your spear tip. No small feat when you've got blisters on blisters, and now it roasts unevenly over the flames. You rotate it slowly like it matters. Probably won't cook through. But that's tomorrow's stomachache, not tonight's. A small flask of wine sits beside you, already half gone. Not out of indulgence, mind you, this stuff is barely drinkable. Sour, murky, and tasting faintly of clay pot. It's still better than the water nearby, which has a reputation for making men suddenly and spectacularly ill. Historians still argue whether Alexander's supply train was efficient enough to provide clean water during the Indian campaign, or whether most of you just risked dysentery and hoped for the best. You don't need historians to tell you. You've seen grown men cry after drinking from the wrong stream. Just as your dubious dinner starts to blacken at the edges, a sudden whine near your ear sends you swatting blindly. Mosquitoes. Again. These things are the real enemy. You'd rather face another war elephant than endure one more night of their incessant dive bombing. You smear a concoction of ash, garlic, and crushed mint leaves on your arms. Standard field repellent that only sort of works. You might still get bitten, but at least now you smell like an herb garden that's been through a fire. You shift on your haunches, muttering about the bugs, and then you hear them boots. Not your unit. Heavier. Less rhythmic. Probably that ragtag cavalry detachment from the other camp, the one with the Thracian accents and no indoor voices. Sure enough, they come striding into view like they own the place. One of them is chewing something, gods only know what, and grins when he sees your fire. Well, well, he says, plopping down like he's been invited. Looks like someone's got himself a gourmet feast. You nod at the stick. Roasted, maybe goat. Want some? He squints at it, unimpressed. I'll wait for something that doesn't look like a burnt sandal. This is dinner in a Macedonian field camp, half social affair, half survival test. Everyone eats in circles around small fires, sharing whatever scraps they've managed to scrounge or steal. Conversations flicker like the flames, leaping from jokes to rumors to quiet complaints about the general lack of, well, anything good. The olives are long gone, the cheese has melted into mystery puddles days ago, and even the hardtack is starting to crumble into unusable gravel. Still, there's camaraderie. That's worth something. You hear a soldier across the fire swearing. He saw one of the elephants dance during training. Another brags about catching a lizard and eating it raw. You laugh, not entirely convinced he's joking. Meanwhile, the skies above have turned a deep velvet blue, scattered with stars like someone spilled salt on black cloth. It's strangely beautiful. You lean back on your elbows, chewing what's left of your meat, which tastes like fire, salt, and faint regret. Someone pulls out a flute, an actual flute, and starts playing a soft, warbling tune. It's uneven but kind of nice. It blends into the chirping of crickets and the crackle of firewood. For a moment you forget you're miles from home, in a land that still feels alien, at the tail end of a conquest that's lasted far too long. Did you know that Macedonian soldiers sometimes carved little dice out of bone or clay? You've got a pair in your satchel, and as the night drags on, you and the Thracian guy with the bad attitude end up tossing them onto a flat stone, betting rations you barely have. He cheats. You call him on it. He grins. It doesn't matter. You're not here for the winnings. You're here because sitting alone invites too many thoughts. There's a brief scare when one of the younger recruits yells about movement near the tree line, and half a dozen men grab their weapons before realizing it's just a monkey. An actual monkey. It screeches and scampers off, probably still laughing in its own annoying monkey way. You shake your head. That's the fifth false alarm this week. The jungle's full of noise, shadows, and things that don't care that you're part of the most powerful army the world's ever seen. As the fire dies down and the stick you were using for your maybe goat is now mostly charcoal, you wrap your cloak tighter. It doesn't keep the bugs out, but at least it keeps the night air off your skin. You've eaten, sort of. You've laughed, almost. And now you wait for either sleep or the next surprise this ridiculous campaign throws at you. You wake with a mouthful of sand and a hip pressed into something definitely not soft. Probably a rock, possibly a bone, maybe both. Your cloak's twisted around your legs, and your first conscious thought is not about glory or conquest, but about your jaw. It's sore. That last chickpea last night was either slightly undercooked or part fossil. The camp is already stirring, soldiers stretching and groaning as another blazing day looms. Somewhere nearby, a man coughs so hard it sounds like he's trying to expel a lung. You hope it's not contagious. Breakfast isn't served here, obviously. You find yesterday's pouch of chickpeas and give it a suspicious look. It's now just the dregs, hard bits and sand from the bottom of your satchel, which seems to leak more than it stores. But still, food is food. You tip them into your palm and crunch through the grit like a good soldier. Protein with a side of regret. You wander toward the morning fires where others are already heating whatever scraps they managed to hold onto. One guy has dried figs, an absolute luxury. Another has a pot with something bubbling, possibly lentils or perhaps just water flavored with ambition. The real prize is someone who's somehow gotten their hands on more garlic. You'd marry him for it, honestly. Garlic is the one reliable thing out here. It cuts through bad meat, masks water gone foul, and might even keep the gods of dysentery at bay. You slather some on a wedge of flatbread that's mostly still bread and less than 50% mold. A win by field standards. As the day begins, so does the buzz. Not just the literal buzz of flies, which never leave you alone, but the chatter that spreads like wildfire when soldiers are bored and anxious. Someone's cousin's friend swears Alexander was seen consulting a seer, again. Another insists the king has a secret plan to marry a local princess and turn the whole region into a satrapy. You've heard it all before, and none of it helps your digestion. While you chew the edges of your garlic bread, you hear the clinking of bronze and iron. The senior officers are gathering, murmuring about logistics, morale, and how many horses have dropped dead in the last week. You don't envy their job. It's not easy keeping thousands of men alive and moving in hostile territory, especially when half the army has been sick at least once in the past month. Historians still debate how Alexander managed his supply lines this deep into India. Some suggest he relied heavily on local resources and forced requisition. Others argue a core logistical team kept a trickle of Mediterranean staples flowing east. Either way, you haven't seen an olive in weeks. After the pseudo-breakfast, it's time for the daily routine of not dying. This includes cleaning your weapons again, checking for lice again, and talking about bowel movements in far more detail than should be socially acceptable. There's something oddly bonding about hearing a grown man describe his stomach like a battlefield. You join a small group near the training grounds where a few men are sparring with wooden swords. You watch them half-heartedly, gnawing on a piece of dried fruit that might be apricot, but could also be just sun-aged leather with dreams. The guy next to you offers a swig of his special wine. You take one sip and immediately regret it. It's strong enough to strip the inside of your mouth clean and tastes like someone stored it in a boot, possibly while wearing it. Amidst the idle lounging and not-so-great food, the day drags. You polish your helmet out of boredom, even though the plume's long gone and the inside smells like damp socks. Then someone mentions Persian gold. That gets your attention. Word is there's a stash hidden somewhere in these parts, buried by fleeing nobles during Darius's retreat. Totally unverified. Probably fake. But it's the kind of thing that keeps tired men marching and digging and dreaming. You add it to your mental list of maybe someday treasures, right under bath and actual cheese. Dinner, if you can call it that, is more of the same. Someone got lucky and snared a bird. Possibly a pheasant, possibly a mutant pigeon. It's scrawny but edible, and everyone crowds around for a taste. You get a bite of something that tastes like it once knew what meat was. It's enough to keep you going. As the night comes on and stars peek back through the hazy sky, your stomach gurgles. Not in satisfaction but in vague warning. You sigh. You're not sick, not yet. But you're definitely not thriving. You stretch out on your cloak again, this time with a small stone under your neck that you pretend is a pillow. The dirt is softer tonight. Or maybe you're just too tired to care. You close your eyes as the camp falls quiet, with only the occasional snore, fart, or whispered prayer breaking the silence. In your final waking moments, you think not about Alexander's grand vision, but about something simpler. A warm meal that didn't come with consequences. The night feels cooler than usual. Not cold exactly, but with enough of a breeze to tug gently at the edge of your cloak and whisper across your sunburned skin. You lie on your back, staring at the stars that scatter across the sky like powdered bone on velvet. It's quiet, almost peaceful, except for the low rhythmic snores of soldiers nearby, punctuated now and then by the hoot of something in the trees. Probably an owl. Or a demon bird. Either way, you're not getting up to check. You shift slightly, the ground beneath you offering little in the way of comfort. Your stomach is still unsettled. Not enough to make you bolt upright in agony, but just enough to keep you from drifting off. That last lentil stew was ambitious. And those chickpeas? Like chewing gravel wrapped in burlap. You start to wonder if your digestive system might just go on strike out of protest. You briefly consider seeing the camp medic tomorrow, but the last time someone went to him with stomach issues, he recommended chewing pine bark and sacrificing a chicken. Not super helpful when you're out of poultry. Still, you're full. Kind of. At least your ribs don't feel like they're scraping against each other anymore. And you're not eyeing your sandals as a backup food source. That counts as a small win. You close your eyes again, hoping to finally slip into sleep, when you hear movement nearby, slow, deliberate footsteps on the packed earth. You freeze, every muscle tensing under your threadbare cloak. It's just Ariston, your tent mate. He grunts and drops beside you, brushing crumbs off his tunic. Stole an extra fig, he mutters proudly. Want a bite? You don't ask from where. You don't want to know. You accept the fig and chew it slowly. It's overripe and squishy and tastes faintly of dirt, but also like luxury. Fig out here. Might as well be a feast. As the two of you lie there in companionable silence, someone across the way starts softly singing a Macedonian lullaby, something about home, hills, and a mother who waits by the sea. You don't know the words exactly, but the melody hums through the air like smoke. You can almost see the ocean in your mind's eye. Calm waves lapping at the shore, boats rocking gently in the harbor, a fish stew bubbling over clean firewood. You try to hold on to that image, like a dream you don't want to wake from. Your eyelids grow heavier. The fire's long burned down, its embers a dull red glow that pulses with each whisper of the wind. You roll onto your side, pull your cloak tighter, and listen to the breath of the camp. Dozens of soldiers, each dreaming their own strange dreams under this alien sky. You think back on the day. The bitter wine, the endless grit, the jokes, the rumors, the maybe goat. It all blends together in a haze of smells and tastes, and the endless grinding march of time. You wonder how many days you've been out here. How many more lie ahead? Historians still debate how long the morale of Alexander's army truly lasted in India, especially after the battle with Porus. Some say the men were still eager for conquest. Others insist they were slowly unraveling, thread by thread, meal by miserable meal. You roll that thought around in your mind like one of your dice, feeling its weight, considering the angles. Maybe you're fraying too. But not tonight. Tonight your belly is full more or less. And your feet aren't bleeding and the fig didn't kill you. You've had worse nights. Somewhere nearby, someone coughs themselves awake, mumbles something about elephants, then goes silent again. You smirk in the dark. The elephants have become mythical creatures around here. Half nightmare, half status symbol. You've yet to see one up close, but rumor has it they eat better than the soldiers. Grain soaked in honey. Actual honey. You'd trade your whole rucksack for a spoonful. The stars above seem to stretch forever. You wonder if anyone at home is looking up at the same sky. Probably not. They're asleep in their beds, bellies full of roasted lamb and warm bread. You don't resent them exactly, but you do envy the bread. Ariston starts snoring. It's a new kind of snore, wheezy and almost melodic. You hope it stays consistent. Inconsistent snores are harder to tune out. Your limbs grow heavier with every breath. You count the stars. Then stop because math was never your thing. And finally, your mind begins to slide into that softer place between waking and dreaming, where thoughts dissolve and time becomes fluid. The fire, the fig, the wine. All of it fades into background noise as you sink deeper. Just before sleep takes you, a single thought drifts through. Maybe tomorrow we'll get real olive oil. Maybe. Wind down 300 words. Now, as you lie there beneath the sweeping sky of ancient India, your body slowly melts into the earth beneath you. The air carries the distant sounds of soft breathing, of low murmurs from the last awake stragglers in camp, and the faint rustle of wind moving gently through dry grass. It's calm now. Even the ever-hungry flies have gone quiet, and the fires have burned to embers, flickering like sleepy eyes that just can't stay open. Your legs, worn from the day's endless trudging, feel heavy now, but in a good way. They've done their job and now they rest. The dull ache in your shoulders, the itch behind your knee, the tightness in your sunburned neck. These things start to float away, gently tugged from your mind and body like loose threads in a breeze. You let them go. Let the worries of camp life fade into the background, replaced by the steady, grounding rhythm of your breath. The stars above you keep watch, unblinking, ancient, the same ones seen by soldiers, lovers, and dreamers from 1,000 different lands. Their light is soft, timeless. Let it wrap around you like a second cloak. There's no rush now. No orders. No noise. Just the soft warmth of the fig still lingering on your tongue, the memory of firelight on your skin, and the knowledge that tonight, you've eaten just enough. So breathe deeply. Let the scent of distant smoke and crushed mint settle into your senses. Let your mind drift, unmoored, gentle and free. You're safe for now. You're full for now. And the stars above will still be there when you wake. Sleep well, soldier.